The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air.
Yo,
What's good, bro?
have you seen Enoch lately?
Man, I haven't seen Enoch in a minute. But, you can't really miss that guy.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, bro, I mean, that man's face be shining from here back to the Garden of Eden. So you know when you see Enoch.
But I haven't seen that glow in a minute. I haven't heard him preach. I've just not seen him.
Bro, you know I ain't one to gossip. But come here, let me tell you a little secret. See, Enoch, we all know he walked with God. Some people have questions about that, but now, word on the street is, this man walked with God, and now he just walked until he was no more.
What?
Bruh, I'm telling you, it sounds crazy, but they said Enoch is with God now, man. This man's in heaven.
Ada, Zilla,
Uh-oh.
listen to me.
Here we go.
Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech.
What is he talking about?
Girl, I wish there was a wife of Methuselah.
I have killed a man to my wounding,
Oh my gosh.
a young man for injuring me.
Man, what is he talking about?
Truly, if Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, Lamech shall be avenged 77-fold.
Must he be this extra?
You're not even Cain. You don't even have the mark.
God created man in his image to reflect his brightness and likeness. However, man was no longer perfect. The virus of sin was now ever present within humanity. The lineages of Adam, through his two remaining sons, Cain and Seth, can be found in Genesis 4 and 5. Honestly, these passages are often overlooked in the Bible, just breezed off as boring family trees. However, these are essential to understanding the state of the world and the ravaging effects of sin. Throughout all the chaos, God shows us his plan to save the world buried within these often forsaken family trees. All right, so we're back. We're back, and to this week we got a special guest, Dominic McFall.
Hello. How
Yep.
y'all doing?
Yeah, so Dominic is another, Bahamian here in Orlando. All right, okay, so last week, just to recap, we talked about Cain and Abel, and we ended up saying how corrupt the world was about to become. And so now we're going to reference Genesis 4 through 7 today. And so now we're going to kick it off just talking about, Cain's descendants.
Yeah, so basically, so one thing to note, the last thing we heard about Cain was he was being banished to some foreign land. He was very afraid, fearful of his life.
Cain was scared of.
Who was Cain scared of though? Like seriously, bro. And I feel like Adam and Eve, it was only a few people there. We don't know how much people, but there's a few people there. So it's a pretty simple culture. But when Cain moved, that's when the world started getting very diverse. You see what I say?
Yeah.
So I guess it's only fitting for us to actually go through Cain's line. You know what I mean? And just understand what type of impact they had in the world.
I mean, Cain's, honestly, like reading the Bible, these genealogies, they just never was interesting to me. But now actually paying attention to Cain's line and Seth's line.
In contrast.
I mean, that's all we got so far.
No, but hold on, bro. Bro, I feel like the viewers ain't gonna be feeling us, bro. You see what I'm saying? Like even saying it now to me, I like if I didn't really see between the lines of what's going on, bro, this still would be very boring to me to understand who granddaddy and you know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
I don't care, bro. Like
I never cared. Honestly, I just never cared. And then, but like, okay, personally, after Cain did what he did, in my young mind, I wrote him off. I didn't care about his lineage. I didn't care about what else they like actually provided the world. But then there were people like Jubal and Jubal, who we gonna talk about in a bit, and he was like, dang, these guys actually may have brought something of substance.
you're just thinking this whole descendants was low lives after that.
See, let me the way I always used to see it, like Cain had he had his children and his descendants.
Who Cain married though?
What her name was, at least.
We still ain't know. But Cain gone through all that, right? But I always used to be like, man, after Noah, all these people gone. So what difference does it make?
Right.
But once you sit down and you look at these guys and how they influence what's going on, it puts a whole new spin on Seth's line.
True.
And how we get to down to what's
flood.
going
Right.
down to the flood.
So what's interesting to me though, and something I wouldn't really put any stock into, is that you kind of have to go down these people's lineage to understand the state of the world. You see what I'm saying? So because it's like the Bible, like it's a short like 4, 5, 6 chopped verses on Cain's descendants. It don't really say much about him.
No.
But it is alluded to the state of the world during the time of Noah. You understand? So that's important just to understand who these people were and what they was dealing with back then, basically. So
All right, so let's run through it. So we had Cain.
the patriarch. I'll tell you he's the father of what's I don't call him the father of murder, but he kick it off.
Yeah,
you understand?
yeah,
Like, he kick it off.
He started.
He
There
kick
was
it
a
off.
downward spiral from there. Let's just say that.
Yeah, that's
So we had Cain, and then we had Enoch, not to be confused with Enoch.
Not to be confused with the good Enoch, like the famous guy that we know, the descendant of Seth. But
And since the next thing, like, I never even know it was the next Enoch.
I just learned that like this year, bro. I just learned that 2020, bro. I ain't even gonna count with John, bro. Like,
because you never care about what's going on with Cain people.
that's number one, and then number two. Whenever they go down to genealogy, I don't even be reading their names, no, bro. As a child, when they hit you with the Mahalalel and you can't pronounce it, I used to put my name there just to progress the story, bro. And we got Nakhaz, you know what I mean? Because I like, bro, they're not saying there's nothing important about these guys anyway, bro. You just insert name here, though. You see what I said?
All right. So we had Enoch, we had Arad, we had, what this guy named? Methujael. Then we had Methusael. And then we had Lamech. Now Lamech was an interesting guy. This is the first Lamech.
Oh, exactly. Also, not to be confused with the other Lamech from Seth's lineage.
But here's the one thing, right? To me, these two Lamechs might have been living around the same time because
They probably were.
Because the crazy thing
Probably.
is, like, they don't go in, like, this just show how Cain didn't really get that much shine. But they didn't go into which years, how long they live. It's just like, oh, here you go.
Exactly, and it's cool too. Like, don't give them they publicity. You know what I mean? Because that's what some people is want at the end of the day. But it interesting because the way the Bible do it, bro. They list off the descendants of Cain, like never to be talked about again. Well, in this chapter in Genesis, and then they say, and Adam knew his wife, and she bare a son, and called him Seth.
Like an honorable mention.
Like no, but to me it's like if you thinking that because like these last couple chapters we learn, we understand that things don't always go in chronological order. You understand? Like they might introduce what's gonna happen in the next chapter, but then they might introduce what's gonna happen in one chapter, and then in the next chapter they tell you what step that happened. You see what I'm saying? So right now they introduce that Seth happened. You know what I mean? But when, as it relates to Cain's genealogy, we don't even know. If you was going strictly based on how the Bible do it, it would lead you to assume
All these people come.
and then Seth. You see what I'm saying? Which I don't believe, but you know, Like that's just interesting to me too. You know what I mean?
And then so I was saying like with Lamech. So Lamech is the first person or the first instance we have a polygamy in the Bible.
Fox.
And he was just boastful. He said, "Yeah, I have 2 wives."
Period.
And then
Go on. Go on.
that's all good. And so it's just interesting how Lamech was introduced. This first Lamech, so it was like, okay, we had Methuselah, who was the father of Lamech. And then Lamech married 2 women. And then, then he had like these 2 sons, Jabal, who was the father of everyone who lived in tents and raised livestock. And then we had Jubal, who was the father of all who play the harp and the flute. And that was interesting. Because honestly, I never read that before this week.
Bro, Fox.
That
bro.
is a fact.
But let me rephrase that. I read that many times before this week,
It never registered.
but this is the first week it actually registered.
Right. And so like I go to my point, bro. You want to think of these guys as just low life thugs, bro. These was talented beings. They heart just wasn't of God.
Exactly.
You know, which lead them to probably do unforgivable things sometimes. You know what I mean? But these guys were very talented. And then you go, yeah, because he had another descendant who,
Yeah, Tubal-Cain, who was like the father of everything, like bronze, iron. This man was just a master craftsman, how the Bible paints him. Like he was just super gifted.
that's a fact, bro. The way Ellen White painted in Patriarchs and Prophets, she basically was saying that these people, they were of the world, you know what I mean? So basically they looked at the world as their spot. And so we might as well make the best of this. You see what I'm saying? And because of that, they ended up doing just a lot of what we'd call great things. I want to say a lot of great things. Like these guys were very invested in the things they do, and they were very talented in that regard. So what you were starting to say, I started to get excited earlier when you talk with Lamech, because you say he's an interesting guy, bro.
Uh-huh.
I like him.
What did Lamech say to his wives?
Let's get into it. Let's get into it, man.
Bro, sometimes it's what you say, but sometimes it's how you say it too.
How you say it?
Let me just show you, because you say he was kind of boastful, he was like polygamous and stuff. But let me show you how my boy is giving it up. This is based on the Genesis 4:23, based on the King James Version. Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Come on, bro. Come on, dog. Come on, but imagine how brazen you gotta be to pull up on your gal in all seriousness and say, hear my voice, wife of Nakhaz. You see what I'm saying, bro? Like it's an honor. Bro, but see, so it's like that introduction, that was a grand entrance right there, right? But it's what he do after that just set it off completely, bro. And this is something, honest to God, bro, I did not know this until 2019, bro. And Bro, Genesis is a book that I've read many times because I've tried to read the Bible all the way through as if it was a novel. And I start through Genesis, can't make it through Numbers. Sometimes just get through Exodus, dog, but Numbers, you start to slow down, like, you know what I mean? So I'm sure that I've read this many times. But it goes on to say, hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly, Lamech 70 and sevenfold.
So is that an instance of him killing 2 people right there?
That's what it sounds like. That sounds like 2 separate
That's 2
instances.
bodies. He said he killed a man for wounding him.
And a young man.
The and wasn't there, but he said, kill a man for wounding me, a young man for injuring me. And he's saying like, so how I get it, you don't need to cut you up, but how I get it, he's saying, bro, Cain only killed 1 person. Guess what? I killed 2. That's why.
But then watch this. In King James, it do say, and the young man to my hurt, but that's how they talk sometimes. You see what they saying? But you saying too, but you gotta do the math, bro. You see like how we was just talking about the genealogy and we didn't really see the value in that because we wasn't really doing the math, bro. You gotta do the mathematics, bro. In this same chapter last week, we just talked about how Cain say, God, I scared people could kill me. And God say, bro, anybody kill you, getting their things sevenfold, bro. Sevenfold. What did Lamech say? If Cain getting sevenfold, I gotta get 77-fold, bro. That's 11 bodies, bro. You see what I said? Bro, so like, he just talk about, I had to make sure the mom was right. You see what I said? So he just say a young man and a man who wounded me. So we could, based on the way based on the syntax of that sentence, we could assume two men. But based on the what he's saying, bro, that sound like 11 bodies to me. And we talking about big boy Lamech right now. Man of 2 wives, the intro to polygamy. You see what I said? See, but yeah, in conclusion.
To Cain.
These are the descendants of Cain who we know, and it ended off with a bang. Well, these are the initial descendants of Cain. So that's like 5 generations. You understand?
And then honestly too, I think the Bible really ended with that in all seriousness to just show the state of the world at that point too. And that's why I'm saying I think like Lamech, those was really around almost like at the time of the flood, because the Bible really just ended off with this. Like this is how the descendants of Cain really acted. Like Lamech was like, this is giving you a synopsis of how the world was. Like, I am boasting about killing. I am boasting about the death. I am boasting about how no one can touch me, essentially. So that's the state of the world. And then the Bible starts to spin off. They're saying, okay, Adam and Eve, thought y'all forget about them, but guess what? They had another son. Hope is not lost. Yeah, so now we learn about Seth. Seth. So like she's saying him Seth because God has granted her another child in place of Abel. And since Cain killed him, like it's just a bitter memory, man.
Yeah, bro.
Because really and truly, it was like 2 sons in once.
That's a fact.
That's really what it is.
And he withdraw from them. And then next one,
Just gone.
the blood was crying out from the field.
Rest
Like
in
you
peace.
could imagine how Adam and Eve had to have felt. You know, like they originally was like, all right, we gonna die for our sins, right? they probably had already, you know, come to terms with that by the time Cain and Abel was born. But to actually witness one child kill another and then have to lose that child to banishment, like,
Bro, and so you gotta understand that Adam lived a life of humility and misery, bro. Because you already scared that you're gonna die because you ate of the fruit. But what is that? Like what that even is, they don't even know what that is. So they eat of the fruit, they understand knowledge of good and evil, but you know what it is in theory, but you never experience it. And when you experience it, it's your son who died, bro. That's a blow. And then first, so you have to just mourn that, right? But then who could console you, bro? Like as a family, Adam and Eve, who you can't talk to your cousins, your sister, you don't have none. You see what I say? Like it's just y'all to what we know, based on our evidence in the Bible, it's just y'all. So you have to be alone in sorrow. And I feel like that is, I don't know, that seemed like torture. You know what I'm saying? But because God is so good, you know, all hope was not lost. Because think about it though, like if you just have Cain who just having children and they ain't have no moral compass, like the fate of the world was done for. You see what I'm saying? So God had to kind of run the offense through Adam and Eve in some way, just for balance, just for people who know God and who understand and who love God. You know what I mean? Just to provide that balance. And here comes Seth. You see what I'm saying? And what's interesting about Seth's genealogy is that the Bible doesn't really say much about the descendants of Seth. You understand? So just to go through it, you know, they say Adam lived 130 years, had Seth. Seth lived 105, had Enos. Enos lived 90 years, had Canaan. Canaan 70, Mahalalel 65, had Jared. Jared 165, Enoch. Boom. So out of all these guys, Enoch was the most interesting person just based on the way the Bible depicts it. Because the Bible goes in to say that Enoch walked with God and he was no more. You know, as opposed to when you look at the descendants of Cain, they would say this one, he used to do tents and stuff. This one, he was music. And this one was brass and iron. So and then this one had 2 wives, bro. So like multiple descendants of Cain, there was something notable about them. You know, the only thing that we could really understand about these people was that they were children of God. You see what I'm saying? You know.
Yeah, well, even before Enoch, like one thing like you was talking about too, well, that you didn't really mention was the Bible also showed how long these characters live. And one thing you would realize, and one thing I realized when I was small, like these characters live significantly longer than our normal lifespans today. But one thing you also have to remember is that Adam ate directly from the tree of life multiple times. So this really, like I said earlier, perpetuated life through them. So now this power from God was still being passed down through Adam's lineage up until that point. And so you even see like up until Noah still living 600 years and stuff. So like, but as you can see, as it started going down each generation, the time starts to slowly decrease. Because remember, Adam was the only one who ate from the tree of life. None of his descendants ate from the tree of life. So now the power is getting more and more diminished as we go to each generation. Significant, but each generation starts to get a little lower and lower. Methuselah was a little wild card there.
Yeah, he was an anomaly. Because at the same time, he still lived longer than Adam.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Like,
he was a little anomaly there.
yeah, he was the all-star in terms of like just life. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like,
So now going back to your point with Enoch. So like Enoch was translated. The Bible said he walked with God and was no more. But I want to pose this question to you guys. What do you think, one, what that means and one, what that takes? Because, yeah, like this is our first example of someone just going to heaven. And it's just such a foreign concept because we know it's death.
Mm-hmm.
They know at that point, because I mean, they know people dying because the descendants of Cain, we already established they were kind of lawless. So they knew what death was, but essentially going to heaven, they knew at some point there was going to be a plan of redemption, but it wasn't anyone what do we think? Like, what do we think Enoch was doing to get that relationship?
Well, if we are going to base all of our, conclusions off of the Bible, right? We do have one other very clear example of somebody who was alive and then he ended up in heaven with God but did not die. And that person was Elijah. And Elijah was a character who was so like in tune with God. Everything that he did like step by step alongside God. Like his heart was one with God. You understand what I'm saying? So he was whatever he said was something that came directly from the mouth of God because God was always so close to him. And if we use that as a template, if we use that as a go by, then we have to come to the conclusion that Enoch was in a similar position. You know what I mean?
right.
In Patriarchs and Prophets, Annie Ellen talks about how Enoch was this prophet who was pretty much so in tune with God. Like anytime he didn't have to be around the sons of men or whatever. He was by himself and he was communing with God. Like he was always trying to get a little bit closer, learn a little bit more, you know what I mean? Get a little bit, just a little bit more from God, you know what I mean? But also it wasn't just about him and God. He was also sharing what he had. And according to Daniel, and he always went into cities of Seth's descendants and was still sharing the word of God as God revealed it to him. So as far as your question, what you had to do, like that's pretty much it. Like, and it sounds simple, but in practice it's definitely difficult. But it's as simple as just being one with God.
Right. So to that point, Amos 3:3 say, "How can two walk?" And it's me paraphrasing. How can two walk unless they agree? Mm-hmm. So walk. That's the operative word right there. Mm-hmm. And it says Enoch walk with God. Right. It's like you could take that as saying him and God was just chilling, trotting, walking, whatever, if you want to. But it could also say he walked as God walked. You know what I'm saying? Like he was like God and he did things that the way God would do it. You understand? So it's like at the end of the day, I don't believe that he was perfect. I don't believe that he was sinless. I definitely don't believe that. You know what I'm saying? I believe he was sinful because we born in sin and we sinful creatures. But at the same time, I believe that when it comes to his mind, he was dedicated to doing things the way God would want him to do it and to learning the way God would want to do things at the end of the day. So I feel like, like if you look at everything that you want to do in life, really, like if you want to be a filmmaker, if you want to be the best filmmaker, right? You got to put in the hard work. You say they saying you got to get skin in the game. You got to study for photographers. You got to study videographers or whatever. You got to go out and practice, you know what I mean? But one thing you really have to do is just be disciplined and continue to practice and to learn. So and the same thing with sports. You understand? The same thing with your professions. Everything you want to do, you're going to have to put in that time and you're going to have to go the extra mile in order to succeed. If you want to be the best in anything, you got to go the extra mile. That's why people love Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, people like that, because I love basketball, so these are the people I use, because these guys train very hardly. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like Enoch would have taken that approach with God and the word of God. So you understand? So it's like sometimes you just think of Christianity as a lifestyle in the same way as like being of a certain culture is a lifestyle or whatever, and like I'm a Bahamian because I was born and raised there, but I don't have to practice being a Bahamian. Essentially, I feel like that's how people look at Christianity sometimes. Like I don't have to practice being a Christian because I believe. You know what I mean? I don't have to improve. I don't have to study because I believe, and that's all it takes. But I disagree with that. You understand? Because how can two walk unless they agree? Like you gotta know God. You understand? You gotta know God to have a relationship with God. It's like when people get philosophical and say like you can't grow until you know yourself, bro. Like you have to learn. You have to actually take the time to learn. You can't just say I know just because. You feel me? And that's literally what I felt like it meant for Enoch to walk with God, not in the literal sense, but in the figurative sense. That the way whenever he moved, it's something that God would do, and not because Enoch was like I so dread I know God, but because Enoch was relying on God. It could have been Enoch saying, how I should move, God. You understand? God say, move this way. Enoch move this way. He ain't even question it. God say, jump. He say, how high, Lord? I could jump still. You see what I saying? And tell me how high. Like, really and truly. So, like, he was really just reliant and obeying God. And it was something like when you look at athletes, bro, some of these athletes and musicians, their life literally is their profession. There's especially CEOs and stuff. You see them bags under their eyes. They look like zombies because all they do is put into their company what they passionate about. I feel like that was the approach that Enoch took. The Bible don't say Enoch had a job. We don't know what distractions this boy could have. I'm led to assume that his main thing in life, really and truly, was just God and just learning and just being better. So,
all right. Yeah, I mean, that's like all good points. Like, honestly, like both of you guys, that was really good. And like, I just got one more thing to add from like my perspective. I even think it like means like, so I'm gonna start off with a verse. So in Psalms 42, verse 1, I'm gonna read verse 1 and 2. The psalmist David writes, "As the deer pants for the streams of water, so my soul pants for you, O God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God?" When can I go and meet with God? And so the reason, I mean, this is a song that we've sang growing up and different things. It's a well-known song, like "As the deer panted for the water." But I just like how it ends, like, so, like, when can I go and meet with God? To walk with God in that type of level, in my human understanding, your soul has to thirst for God. I've read that, and this is all human speculation at this point, but I've also read that Enoch, he had this strong desire and urge to want to learn about God, to want to be more about God. He looked at his son and realized that as a baby cries for his father, that's how we should be crying for our Heavenly Father. And so when David says, "As a deer panteth for water, so my soul shall long after you." So think about it. When we're thirsty, like when you like playing, like running sports, playing volleyball, soccer, basketball, football, you get to the point where you're really dehydrated and you really want something to drink. And so as bad as we want water in those instances, we should want God even more than that. And it's that strong desire that leads you to do all that researching. It's that strong desire that leads you to start reading. It's that strong desire that wants you to spend every waking moment with God. I mean, think about it. Like when you were growing up, like there were times where you wanted to be around your parents. It wasn't nothing. You just felt cool being around your parents. And it's sad as we get older, we lose that with our parents, but even more so sad that we lose that with God. Like we start to put God on the back burner. We don't have that thirst and that yearning. Like we know deep inside that we should be reading our Bible more, but then we start treating it as a checklist. Like, well, read my Bible today. Oof, read the verse of the day. Oh, I prayed when I got up. But is it meaningful? Because it's one thing to drink water, but it's one thing to really be very, very thirsty and want water to drink.
That's true, because like me personally, if I ain't really conscious about drinking water, I'll probably drink like 3 or 4 bottles a day. You see what I'm saying? And that's just based on necessity. But when you trying to be health conscious, you want to drink about half your body weight in ounces of water. You see what I'm saying? Or you want to drink that full gallon. That's being intentional about getting hydrated in your body. Yeah, but like that's deep. I just to be real with you, bro.
Yeah, so man, that's Enoch. And one other thing I wanted to say too, and we could debate this, we could talk about it. Like, I honestly think God taking Enoch at that point was a sign of hope for everybody else too. Because we heard about, like, okay, you're making sacrifices to me. You know, at some point in the future, you don't know when, but I am going to send my son to die for your sins. But realistically, what do you really have to look forward to? Like, you can still see the Garden of Eden, but in your human sinful nature, the Garden, you have animosity towards the Garden of Eden now, because you can't go in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you're looking at something that you can't have. Realistically, to some people, it's going to be Solomon, but to some people, that's just breeding hatred and anger.
Bro, you know why that's a big line, bro? Imagine you living in a world with nothing but murder and thing, right? And people disregarding God all the time. If you can't see the benefit of serving God, it would seriously be worthless. Because, like, watch this why, right? Somebody, let's say it's just this random guy in the Bible. Let's say Lamech. Let's just be real. Lamech, the descendant of Cain. Let's say he didn't really care for God. Like, he didn't really see the point of serving God. Because in his mind, you could die, I could die. You see what I'm saying? Some people don't be thinking about the afterlife. Some people don't, and afterlife is a weird word to use. Some people don't think about going to heaven. You see what I'm saying? Eternal life. Some people don't think about that. Some people really, and remember, that's what we did mention earlier. These people, they set anchor on earth, and earth was it. It wasn't nothing after earth. You see what I'm saying? So to them, bro, I gotta live life to the fullest, bro. Because at the end of the day, this all we got. But when you see Enoch walk with God and was no more, when you see him get transfigured into heaven, you like, wow, I guess there is a payoff for serving God. Because it's like, seriously, bro, like, what's the point of getting up and going into work every day if you're not getting paid? You getting up, you getting dressed, you ironing every single day, not getting paid. It's like we working remotely right now because of a pandemic, bro. Imagine you ironing your clothes every day just to sit in front of the computer and go to work. It's no point to it, dog. You're not getting any value from this. You see what I'm saying? So some people might look at Enoch and saying, you doing too much. You see what I'm saying? You doing things the hard way. You going about life the hard way. You depriving yourself of luxuries in life for nothing. And now this is an example of just God just being real with his word. You see what I'm saying? This is an example of God showing us what the wages of just being a disciple of God is. You see what I'm saying?
Now, another interesting thing about this, right? I agree with what you're saying, Earl, about this showing being a sign of hope, but I want to add the caveat that it's a sign of hope to those who are hopeful, right? So what I mean by that is you have all the people who are, doing the things that God asks of us to do, who know God and who trying to follow God's word. Imagine, you like y'all was saying, you going through this and you doing the right thing and you just get tired. You know what I mean? So it's a rejuvenating thing. But on the flip side, if I come in with the mind of a skeptic, right? If I come in and I say, man, whatever Enoch saying, that he ain't saying nothing, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden Enoch disappear, I ain't gonna think, oh, Enoch gone to heaven. I could be like, Enoch probably get knocked off by somebody else. You understand what I'm saying?
Someone kill him. That's a normal thing. That's a normal thing.
So in my mind, I'm like, that just goes to show that whatever Enoch was saying don't make no sense. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like we know that God has the ability to lift up those who need lifting up, and to harden the hearts of those who already set in their ways. You understand what I'm saying? Yep. So that's why I'm like, I feel like there's a bit of a caveat with that hope.
Mm-hmm.
But above all, it was used as an example for them and for others to come, even us, saying, bro, like literally, if you walk with God, this also could be your fate.
Exactly.
Nah, it's just up to you whether you have the discipline, you see what I'm saying, and the drive to do that. Nah, granted, it was only one Enoch. You see what I'm saying? Like, out of all the godly men in the Bible, well, we just say it was two Enochs. Hold on. We just say it was two Enochs in Genesis alone, but I'm trying to say It was only one boy who carry on like this. It's another so far. You see they saying at the time. You see they saying we got the prophet. What is it? Elijah. We have the prophet Elijah who was in a similar fashion. You see what I saying? So at the end of the day, we have all of these godly men, but that's not going to be the result for everybody. As a matter of fact, it's only the result for 2 people out of probably zillions or zillions of people like that ever live. Like really, there's no way of knowing. You see what I say?
Yeah. And so now, I know we spent a lot of time with Enoch, but like Enoch just a lot of time apart, honestly. So now up to Enoch. After Enoch, he had Methuselah, who was an interesting guy because this is the longest lifespan that we have documented. 969 69 years.
I don't. Let me.
He lived longer than Adam.
969.
I just want to point.
969.
This man lived longer than Adam.
Adam was 930.
Yeah, Adam, my God, like Methuselah just old.
Methuselah was like the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar of, you see what I'm saying? Like the Will Chamberlains, like, like you associate them with just being archaic, number one. And then number 2, they have the stats. You see what I'm saying? They have these unbelievable stats, bro. Like,
oh
yeah,
my.
bro, 969, that's crazy.
Then Methuselah had the other Lamech.
The second Lamech. And then Lamech had Noah. And so now something like, as I was digging into the genealogy, something like I discovered that made it so much more interesting to me. So now, from Adam, who was the first man, to Noah, each of their names, remember in the Bible, everyone's name literally meant something. So now I'm going to run through it. Adam was man, which we know. Adam, man. Seth was the anointed. And we see how Eve was saying that, yeah, God had given me another son in place of Abel because Cain slew him. Seth was the anointed one. Enosh was mortal. Canaan was sorrow. You could see they was getting a little depressed then. Yeah.
Then Canaan said, you know what? I'm livening up a bit.
Right.
So Mahalalel, his name was the blessed God. Jared means to descend or to come down. Enoch means teaching or dedicated. And Methuselah, as much as I associate him with ancient, he means his death shall bring. I'm going to put a pin in that one too. Lamech means the despairing. And Noah, Lamech named Noah saying that Noah's going to bring comfort and rest. Right? So now if you put it, we go through that now. If you read their meanings all together, man appointed mortal sorrow, the blessed God shall come down, teaching, his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest. And now if you add some modern words like is and but in there, so now man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down, descending, teaching, his death shall bring the despairing comfort. And so, like,
Earl, I don't think they really get
Hold
that.
on, they might have to
We
pause.
we need a second.
if we take the genealogy, chapter 5 of the Bible, going from Adam to Noah, right? Adam, man, Seth, appointed, Enosh, mortal, Canaan, sorrow, Mahalalel, the blessed God, Jared shall come down, descending, Enoch, teaching, Methuselah, his death shall bring, Lamech, despairing, comfort and rest. The genealogy of Adam to Noah, verse chapter 5 of the Bible, literally indicates and is a foreshadowing of the coming Messiah. And you can fact check me on all of these names. You can go to Google, can go in the Bible, and you literally can see what these people's name was for yourselves.
Sheesh, bro.
If y'all ain't hear that, I just dropped my pen.
Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down, teaching that his death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest.
Wow. Now, I just want to switch back to our demeanor earlier in the part where we were saying we didn't know why God going through all of this. You see what I'm saying? Like literally, bro, if you just take, bro, like I just feel like, his ways are not our ways, bro. It's like, seriously, bro, you would need like divine intervention to really break down a lot of the things that you see in the Bible. There's some stuff in the Bible you just is reading, you just be like, okay,
Why that there?
Why this there, bro? Like, okay, this getting boring, but you just ain't doing the mathematics, bro. You see what I'm saying? Like, you gotta go. Like some things, bro, you can't just read the lines. You have to read between the lines, and that's where divine interventions comes in.
Man, one thing my Grammy told me when I was younger, and like I'm appreciating it more now that I'm older, but she told me nothing is in the Bible for no reason.
That's a fact.
Because like we were saying, like not even to repeat what you were saying, but growing up, you just think it's just a genealogy, it's boring. But God was literally foreshadowing, telling you what happened to man and what his plan was. In a verse that is just ages and genealogy. But when you break it down, he is saying, yeah, man has a lot of sorrow. But my death will bring the despairing comfort. And the next thing I want to say too, Methuselah, the guy who lived the longest, 969 years, his death also brought the flood.
The flood.
Methuselah died the year of the flood. Also foreshadowing that his death will bring the flood.
So that's first of all, that's what's up, bro. I glad you know what I mean? I'm glad you were able to break that down for us, bro. Like that's awesome. You know what I mean? But you just said something very interesting, bro. And this was something that this was actually when I started reading Patriarchs and Prophets, and this sound like product placement. How much we be mentioning this, like really and truly, like we sponsored by them or something.
We're
like,
not.
We're not. You feel me? Like, but like that book really it really sparks up in me. Like it really helped me to really love the stories of the Bible. Just being honest, I started reading it in 2014. I still ain't finished it yet. True God, and I ain't ashamed to say that, but it's just so much gems in it. But this story right here, with the story of Noah, I think it was like chapter 5 or 6. This was when I really start to develop intrigue for the Bible, bro. Because they say these people live how many every years, blah 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 blah. But during the time of Noah, bro, you don't even realize, bro, that Noah, granddaddy, great granddaddy, all of these people still around, bro. As a matter of fact, Adam died less than 200 years before Noah was born, bro. If you do the math, because it's like I thought, because I used to be a little skeptical on what to say, because like some of these things, patriarchs and prophets hit you one way, but you don't really see it in the Bible. Bro, I go on and I sit down and I count up everything. You see what I saying? This person was 110 when he had a son. This person was 100. I add up all of them, bro. I add it all up and it come up to 1,049 years between when Adam had Seth and when Noah was born. 1,049 years. You see what I'm saying? Difference. And Adam lived to be, how old? 930?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, granted, Adam had 7, he's like 130 or something like that. So, whatever. You see what I'm saying? But, like, you have people like Methuselah, who was around. He know Noah. You see what I'm saying? These people was around, bro. So, it, like, and this for those who already know how the story go with Noah and how much people actually ended up on the flood. So, you ended up on the boat. You know what I mean? We had generations of people who was just around. You see what I'm saying? People was dying like almost a century later, you know? So that is crazy to me. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But as we starting to talk a little bit more about the flood, I just wanted to point out Cain's lineage, right? And contrasting it with Seth's lineage. We see a definite downward spiral as, you know, generation after generation comes up. And, you know, definitely God's sons, you know, the line of Seth had the intention was to keep them, you know, separate, you know what I mean, in the world, but not of the world. But then we go into Genesis chapter 6 and verse 2.
Yeah, I think that's what you're going for.
But yeah, like we see in Genesis chapter 6 and verse 2, and as a matter of fact, I'll even start off from verse 1 from the New International Version. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. So basically what we're seeing is we losing that sanctity, that holy, separation of the line of Seth. And there's now becoming a dilution
Yep.
of God's influence on the earth. You know what I mean? And because of that, now we start going down into this downward spiral towards where we have God ready to basically wipe out the whole entire planet. Like God is literally regretting making human beings, and he's like, all right, I just gonna be done with this. Just get rid of all of them and start over. Let me get out my eraser. You know what I mean? But I just found it also really interesting that even though it was like a downward spiral, if we go back to Enoch, Enoch was, and we said this earlier, but Enoch was like a light, in a very dark world. And when he was taken away to be with God, that light on this earth was no longer, it was snuffed out in a sense.
Yeah, that's true.
And there was a period of literally like 700 years where you didn't have Enoch, who used to come into, according to Annie Ellen, who used to come into Seth's camp and, preach the truth about God and trying to show people what it really is. So to me, it's like there's so many different little things that's coming up that where you just have this kind of collapse, of morality. You know what I mean? And so now we get down to the point where God is just, he tired. He ready to call it in, throw in the towel.
You ready to call it?
Yeah, wave the white flag. Let's get this done.
I mean, one thing I even want to point out too, the whole antediluvian world, pre-flood times, for those who just getting acquainted with that term, but they were more superior than we are now. Just to even put it blatantly.
Yeah, facts.
Stature, mind power, brain power, just overall they were more grand and superior than we are now. So we thinking like now a normal NBA player 7 foot, you are a gigantic. 7 foot, you are like a teenager to them.
Yeah, you could have been short back then. I ain't even gonna lie.
Could have been. You would have been
Yeah,
short.
you short. Yeah,
you was short.
My bad. You short. You
I was
short.
gonna say, like, you
Could have been.
yes, bro. You short. No.
You were him. But this okay. So this where like
Cassie wasn't ready.
no, I wasn't ready. I was like sheesh. But this way I want. That's what I want to get y'all opinion on, right?
Break it down.
So the Bible said there were giants in that time, right? Is this giants in contrast to the way people already were? Or are these people the giants that they're referring to? Are they just saying that these people were giants? Or are they saying that when the sons of God and the daughters of men came together, they made giants in contrast to how tall they already were? You know what I mean?
So it's so weird because you would honestly have to think for something to be gigantic to you, it would have to be your point of reference. Because let's just take Kevin Durant, 7 footer. For something to be tall to him, we know for us, bro, that thing has to be very, very huge.
That's a fact.
But now for something to be tall to me, Kevin Durant would be like, bro, this guy only like 6'3", bro. Like, what you talking about, bro? You short.
Yeah.
Like a little point guard to me, literally. So, to me, it has to be from a point of reference. So it have to be bigger. That's just how I think about it in my head canon.
Yeah, because I just wondering, like, the author of Genesis, are they speaking to us or are they just documenting? Usually they saying, like, because if they documenting usually they saying that these people came about as giants.
But think about it, even then, if you even documented based on that, you still have to do it based on the reference frame for them. Because you're looking at Adam and something taller than Adam. Because you're seeing something even bigger than what you're seeing. So you can't even say, like, because saying giants to me at that point would be obsolete. Because at that point, you're just seeing humans.
And that's my thing.
Here's another thing I want to throw out to y'all, because that's a really good question. But what if we looking at it from the wrong angle, right? So I think most of the Judeo-Christian Jewish community uses the word giant as the translation for Nephilim. There are some people who think that the word Nephilim actually means like fallen warriors. At least this is what I've come across in some of my readings. You understand what I'm saying? So now instead of thinking about these people as giants, you think about these people as great people, but they were fallen warriors. Like they are no longer one with God, so they have to be just like how the fallen angels. You understand what I'm saying? So the term fallen don't necessarily take away from how great they were in our human understanding of the term.
Yeah. So this one of them things, boy. This one.
Yeah.
This one.
This way, like the Bible doesn't give you as much context, so you just have to speculate. I mean, like
Yeah.
the Bible, let's say they were heroes of old, men of renown, and like just like how the Bible just brushed across. Yep, Enoch walked with God and was no more. Here you go, Nephilim. That's that. Moving right along.
Yeah. But yeah, on a real note though, I was kind of confused, and maybe y'all could help me out here. In chapter 6 of Genesis, chapter 6 and verse, I think it's verse 3.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Yeah, and starting in verse 3, when it says, "Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years." Like I never understood. I never understood what the purpose of this 120 years was.
I ain't just as lost as you, bro. I read that. Because you know, like how they say, 70, that's what you promise on the earth.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, maybe he was saying that. I know, bro. I don't even know.
So that's why I was like, but he already promised 10. So why are we talking about 120?
You see what I said? But then he didn't promise that yet.
He didn't promise that yet.
You see what I'm saying?
But so like that 120 Del was when God was saying like man is evil. The world I created is essentially become corrupt. So 120 years. So that day he said y'all have 120 years more to live. So it's at that same time when he starts saying, okay, I am going to wipe out mankind from the earth. So we have 120 more years to go. So Noah, if you read down like cover 5 verses, he went to Noah and was like, yeah, this is my plan. I'm going to do this. So Noah had 120 years to build the ark, knowing that the flood was going to come for 120 years.
Wow.
And so like that's when God said, my spirit will not contend for me every 120 more years. That's what you're saying. Like, nope. 120 more years, I am going to hit the reset button. And that's something to keep in, like, that's something to like, keep in the back of our heads too. The world got so corrupt and so evil in less than 1,200 years that God was saying, I am going to hit the reset button on the earth, on the world. Literally, in our point of reference, we only 6 chapters in the Bible. The Bible is big. I don't know if you all.
There's a lot more chapters to go. I'd say that.
Like, if you're flipping through the Bible, you only flip 1-2 pages. You flip 2 pages, and God was like, "Yep, reset button." And so far, we looked at the descendants of Cain. We see how the world was corrupted, but simultaneously, we've seen how through the lineage of Adam through Noah, God promised. We know God made a promise, but God showed how I am going to send. The blessed God will come down, and his death shall bring the despairing comfort rest. And so we see the contrast between the evil lineage, and the promised line lineage. And we've also learned about Enoch, how a sign of hope, how we walk with God, we pant for him as a deer panteth for water. If our soul thirsts for God as we thirst for water in our most desperate situations, that we could go to heaven, we could walk with God, build that relationship with God, because that's really what it was. It was a relationship with God, knowing God, walking step and step with God, making it to heaven. And throughout all the evilness that was happening in the world, through all the craziness, there was still a sign of hope that it could be done. And we could use it as a representation to us, honestly, coming down like, because the Bible says, later down in Matthew, as in the days of Noah, shall it be in the end. And so we think it's crazy now with a pandemic going on, with
Race wars
going on.
But this ain't even the last days.
And that's what I mean. Like, we know we're nearing the end times, but we can't even say this as bad as it was in the days of Noah.
That's what I said.
And
Like,
that's so hard
this
to
ain't even the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. So like let's think about that. So now I say all to say, if in those times we have people who could serve God, what is our excuse?
Although closely related, the descendants of Seth and the descendants of Cain were very different. Of Cain's lineage, we found the first instance of polygamy and other instances of murder. Of Seth's, we see evidence of righteous men like Enoch and Noah, who both walked with God. However, somewhere in between, the two lineages intertwined, resulting in a world so evil that God had to destroy it. But we'll talk about Noah and the flood on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by Ayanna Albertson and Isabelle Labbe. We also had a special guest, Dominic McFall, along with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.